Welcome to Rage Quit Wire. This is episode 2, and this episode is going to be a lot about butchers, so we're calling this More Butchers. So, first off, I'm Pete again, and once again we got I'm going to call you my sidekick, Chris.
Am I the sidekick?
Well, I don't know. I guess I'm the sidekick pundit.
Okay. I like that better.
Okay. So I'll be the assistant pundit, and you'll be the host, Chris.
Sure. Why not?
Hey, I have no problem who goes first here. So just quick thing, guys. We recently got sponsored, I guess you could say. Our local game shop said that our other microphone was shit. So he hooked us up with this new fancy one. And we're just giving Final Round in Summerville, South Carolina, a shout out for hooking us up with a good mic.
Yeah. So no more bitching about sound. How convenient.
I think he said it sounded like we got it for free from like some kind of conference. I think is what he said it sounded like.
Which is convenient because that is where you got that first mic.
It's almost like exactly where I got it from.
Yeah.
Shout out to my wife there. So yeah, we're just going to start off. We got the new sponsor. It's going to be a little bit about butchers, but I do want to start off with the Union and Chains event just because that's kind of like what's going on right now. So looking at kind of the way the running's going, because we're in week 2 now, and just everything's kind of pretty dead even as far as the breakdown goes for who's winning each of those competitions. So if we look at it in the competition for fishermen and butchers, that's kind of like in almost a dead heat, which I know probably makes you sad because you want gutter for your butchers.
I think the butchers will be okay. They'll win it.
You think they're just going to win it?
Yeah.
Maybe with all these new butcher players.
There's a lot of people playing butchers, so I think that they'll take care of that.
Okay. So we got that. I'm just pulling up the new numbers now.
In fact, I feel so comfortable that the butchers are going to win that, I may just put my games into another guild because I really want to model.
Yeah, we'll talk about that in a second. So the butchers are ahead 57% to about 43% right now. So, I mean, that looks good for the butchers, but that's going to be tough, I think, to keep that lead because fishermen, there's a bunch of those jerks around. The morticians and the hunters, their fight for veteran hemlock is in a dead heat. Apparently, the 2 players that play those guilds are playing games back and forth.
Well, unless you're up in Greenville this week where everyone's playing the hunters.
Yeah, we'll talk about that in a second, too. There are a lot of hunters and a lot of morticians players, but definitely...
Especially if you're foreign.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's one thing I think we're going to talk about. We don't understand how they're winning so much, meaning the hunters, because they won the Canadian National Tournament and then the Australian National Tournament. So we kind of want to hear how you guys are playing them so well because both Chris and I, we played them and we've had tough luck with them in several matchups. So
we mostly want to know how you overcome the boredom of having to play that control game because it is a snooze fest.
I think I told you that when I was playing Ballista the other day, right? I was like, well, I shouldn't have gone into you because you're playing farmers, but I was so bored that I wanted to go in. I'm like, all right, let's get this thing going.
Yeah, like I can understand why people would play Scatha and why she would create like these scoring threads. I don't understand why anyone would want to play that boring control game that Theron puts together.
Well, I think a lot of people like the setup. It's kind of like that long game where, you know, he can set up the rest of the board and then he puts out all these snares. And especially if you bring that, the free charge brigade, where you bring like minks, you bring the bear, and you bring the cat, and everybody gets a free charge. And hey, we all like things being snared. I think that might be ideal for him, I guess.
Sure, and then you farm that bear. Convenient.
Well, yeah, but not. Some people are scared of the bear, especially Gast. So the Brewers versus the Masons one, which this is where Chris wants to be a jerk because I've actually probably put in about 6 games into the Brewers side of this, and the Brewers are up 63% to the Masons 37%.
They've got the biggest lead.
They do.
But I don't like that because I really want that Sorsha-looking Kador version of Decimate to come out so that I can mix that model into another game.
So, but as far as that model goes for Guild Ball, do you like that new Decimate model? Either side?
Yeah, I don't really like the Brewers one, and I really, really like the Masons one.
Because I was
the hat on it alone.
I was listening to people talk about it, and first off, they said it looked like she drank a bunch of protein shakes. And then secondly, they were actually kind of mad because it didn't look like the model supported any of her fluff. Like, if you look at it, the weapons are totally different. She doesn't have her rapiers anymore. And she's gone into this huge broadsword and this huge mason, sledgehammer. So I'm just curious what you think about that.
So I don't necessarily think that it's a great model fluff-wise, but I like the model.
Yeah.
And I specifically like it with that hammer and the appearance of it, and that it's going to be an awesome model to paint and make winter-themed and mix in with the Masons. It will be awesome.
Well, you won't get that model because the Brewers are going to win this, and I'm going to make sure of it because I'm getting at least like 3 games a week, and I'm recording every one.
Well, for all of you that are listening to this, if you want to be able to give the Brewers a lot more speed, I guess you can go ahead and let the Brewers win that. But as for me, I would like to see the Brewers still have the speed limitations because they hit like a truck as it is. So I would love to see the Brewers not get that model from what Decimate does. And I would love to see the Masons get it just based on the aesthetic of the Mason version of that model.
Well, see, and the cool thing, though, is I actually like the model for the Brewers a lot. Like, I think it's a cool pose. It almost looks like Friday's bigger sister because she's, like, all hulked out. But it's definitely not really Decimate. The only fraction of Decimate you still see on that model is the broken mask that she's wearing. Besides that, it doesn't really look anything like Decimate. But I'm kind of okay with that because I really don't like the original Decimate
I thought that
model.
was a scar. I thought she had looked like a scarred face.
No, it's like a quarter of the mask.
Okay. I was reading that very differently. I thought for sure they were going to
I'm going to pull it up real quick just to kind of...
I thought they were putting a scar across her face like Tyrion Lannister in Game of Thrones.
She's hardcore. No, that's definitely her mask.
Okay, let me see.
Yeah, it's like a quarter of a mask, dude. You see it?
Okay, yeah.
So,
but so like, it's Phantom of the Opera.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. That's cool, and I like it because now if this model gets chosen, she's brewered out. So, I mean, I like it, but as far as, like, the old Decimate model, I wasn't crazy about it anyways, so...
I don't like the old one either.
I like this better.
Well, and let's be real, I feel like a big part of this event is trying to cycle out these Union models that people weren't a huge fan of. Even Blackheart looks like... That pose is terrible for that Blackheart that everyone gets. The Kickstarter version of Blackheart's awesome.
So, looking at that then, I mean, because I think the Brewers are going to win that one just because I'm going to get that lead. You might as well just play for your Butchers. But looking at the Union and Chains matchup for Engineers and Alchemists, this one actually got surprisingly a lot closer. I think week 1, Engineers only had like 20% of the games played, and the Alchemists had like a 75% like advantage or something like that. And now it's gone back down where the Alchemists only have a 58 to 42% lead. So that's kind of cool because I'm glad the Engineers woke up and decided to play in the Union and Chains event.
Yeah.
Especially since we know like 3...
I want to see it be competitive. It brings people into the game when those matchups are competitive.
Yeah. Well, I think people enjoy the event more when it's closer. It's like if this is a blowout, week 4... I mean, it's boring that way. And I've been giving our Engineer players crap just because I'm like, hey, you guys haven't recorded any games yet. This is going to be close. I mean, I think every game's going to matter when this is all said and done.
Well, it was by 1% that the last narrative event was decided.
The Butcher one?
Yeah.
Really? Was it that close?
Yeah, it was really close.
I thought there was like a lot of anti-Filet hate.
There was a lot of anti-Filet hate. So basically it was Butcher's players playing for Filet.
Mm-hmm.
And the rest of the world meta playing against her, and it eked out for Brisket.
Okay. So this I mean, I wouldn't say it goes with the Union Chains, but I mean, when you're looking at it, do you like the way the event's going right now as far as Union Chains goes? I know you're busy, but
Sure. Yeah, I think that I think these narrative events are fun. I like that we get some more fluff out of it. I don't think I've read the most recent update.
yeah, I'm not going to spoil the recent one because it's actually really cool and it deals with Decimate. So if you want to get in, like, if you're into that Brewer Mason kind of matchup right now,
I am.
Yeah, you totally are. You should read it though because it does give you some cool narrative about Decimate, and also, I mean, Rage is just in a bad way right now. I don't see him coming out of this one.
So one of the cool things is all the new models coming out with this event. But I know we haven't talked about this yet. I thought I'd bring it up right now. What are your thoughts on those new Halloween models that they're releasing?
Kill me now. These new Halloween models are fucking awesome. I mean, I'm not a Halloween guy. I won't pretend to, dress up and go to all these Halloween parties. That's not what I do. I don't watch a lot of Halloween scary movies, but these models are cool because the models that they just showed a couple days ago with what looked like, obviously one was Blackheart coming out of the Tombstone.
Mm-hmm.
Really cool model. I would use that all the time. And then you have this Mortician model, which I've kind of argued with a couple people on our Twitter page. I'm going to do a little selfless plug here at, rage_quit_wire at the old Twitter feed. But
yeah, jump on there, follow us. You'll get updates through our Twitter for sure.
Yeah, and share information with us that, you want us to talk about, or just some cool things that you might have, some battle reports or something you want to share with us. But I've argued with a couple people on there that they think it is actually Obulus, whereas I'm like, I think since it doesn't have a head, I think it might be Ghast.
I think it's Ghast too.
Yeah.
The one that I thought, and it just hit me right in the feels, was that Tombstone for grayscales.
I'm looking at it right
now. With Salt just curled up right over that grave.
For Salt. I didn't know.
Tears.
Grayscale's dead?
Apparently.
I didn't even see. I must have missed it. And I've read the season 3 fluff, and he's mentioned in there, so I'm not sure where. Or maybe he hasn't died yet. Maybe they're foreshadowing it. I don't know. Somebody that knows the lore a little better.
Probably going to be Hammer that takes care of that.
Well, Hammer lifted him off the ground and basically threw him off the practice pitch.
Yeah, he's old.
But it's really cool because, and is that going to be like, what size base do you think that is for those Tombstones?
I don't know what size base they are. I'm just really excited. I think that you get the early release if you're signed up through. I don't know if it's only pundits or maybe it's just whoever signs up on the
I think
email
it's
list.
Whoever gives them the email because I signed up for it and I'm not technically a pundit yet, so I think anybody could do that.
And I think that it starts on the 23rd.
It's whatever next Monday is. That's
the 23rd.
So yeah. So I know next Monday because I'm going to get with our group and I'll be like, hey, who wants this? I'm putting it in order like today.
Yeah, that's my plan as well. So we'll be coordinating.
Oh yeah, definitely
for sure.
Yeah, but I love that. I mean, Salt just looks so sad.
Yeah, poor Salt.
I mean, you thought otters were cute. I mean, how sad is it when an otter is sad? That's just terrible.
Otters are not as cute as people think.
Well, let's not get into that. We've talked about that before. We're not going to get into
that. They're very rapey. Go look it up, guys.
Yeah, so shout out to my friend Eric out in Kansas because he always mentions how territorial otters are. And if you want to see how vicious they are, you can look it up. I'm not going to talk about it anymore, though. Anywho, so those models are really cool. But the coolest model, and you're going to hate it when I tell you this, is that Thresher model. Because he has his scythe sticking out of his chest and all the mainspring bits that are in his chest and stuff. And I'm going to play that model when it comes out.
Well, they nerf that model before it comes out.
As soon as I get it, that 3-inch reach is going to be hitting you in the face.
Stupid farmers.
I'm not a proxy guy, so I know that obviously the cards are available and people have been proxying Thresher. I'm one of those guys where I actually wait for the models to come out because I'm not a proxy guy. Just like your Lady Brick. So let's go ahead and I think we hit that up pretty good. So
let's talk about Greenville.
Yeah, there was a cool tournament, and sadly, Chris and I couldn't go to this.
I was sick as a dog.
Yeah, Chris was sick, and I had some. I don't know how I want to classify this. I don't think Reno will listen to this. So it was just, it was mandatory fun, whatever you want to call it. I had my big 10-year anniversary trip with the wife, so it was a lot of fun. But definitely wanted to go to that tournament because it turned out to be a really big slugfest. They had about 21 players, 4 rounds up in Greenville at Borderlands. So
sponsored like crazy.
Yeah, they had a bunch of loot that went out, so it was a really cool tournament and really good turnout. So first thing that I wanted to kind of share with everybody was just kind of the guild breakdown, and I don't think you've looked at this yet.
I took a peek at it.
Okay, so I'll just kind of, for the listeners, and this is why I love the game though, is because this is so diverse. It's not like when I go to a War Machine tournament or I go to a 40K tournament, because when you go to those, you see a lot of not only same armies, but same lists.
Yeah.
Whereas this tournament, it was a very, very good split. They had...
I was shocked by how spread out it was.
Yeah.
Like, that pie looked pretty even.
Yeah, so just to give everybody a quick rundown, Hunters had the most players with 4, Butchers had 3 players, Fishermen, Alchemists also had 3 players each, Brewers had 2, Farmers had 2, Masons had 2, and then Morticians, and I was surprised there was only 1 Union player.
Yeah.
Morticians and Union both only had 1. So I was surprised to see that because I know there's a lot of Union players out there.
Yeah.
So,
I really wish I was able to go to that event. It looked like it was a lot of fun. I was surprised to see so many Hunters players there. I know Brandon, who's the pundit up in Myrtle Beach, finished as the top Hunter player.
yeah, he finished in 8th, so that was the best.
Of the Hunters?
Yeah, the best of the Hunters as far as that goes. And so what ended up taking first was Butchers, which I'm really happy to see Butchers winning some tournaments. Fishermen got second.
As they should.
As they should. And then we got Morticians getting 3rd and Masons getting 4th. So
where did the farmer guy finish?
The best farmer finished 10th. Which
shocking.
you and I both kind of found surprising. I'm going to chalk that up to maybe the 2 farmer players there were newer and maybe they didn't know some of the tricks that you can do with farmers.
Yeah.
I think we both agree that if you're a new farmer player, and especially if you're a newer player in general to Guild Ball, farmers can be really tough to play.
In fact, I think the new guilds in general can be tough to play. I think that if you look at newer players, I wouldn't recommend they play the Hunters. I wouldn't recommend that they play the Farmers. I wouldn't recommend that they play the Blacksmiths. I think all 3 of those newer ones are much more difficult than something that's going to be really straightforward, like the Fishermen, like the Butchers. Those are good factions to start with.
Yeah, I agree with that because those teams are pretty straightforward. Like if you're the Butchers, it's like, hey, let's go kill some stuff. And if you're the Fishermen, it's like, hey, let's go score some goals.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of debate on how you should be playing, and there's not like a certain formation you need to stay in. It's pretty much just, hey, just go with it and do what you can. But farmers, if you lay that game out wrong, you're going to get trashed.
Yeah. And unfortunately, as people start learning those farmers, there will be fewer people that lay that game out wrong.
Yeah, so this was called the Honest Land Hoedown. So I was kind of hoping there would be more farmers in this event. And I think we'll kind of switch this up from being that tournament because, we weren't there, so we're not going to pretend to do any like kind of battle reports or anything. Or just like how games went because obviously we weren't there. But I think
congratulations to Mike on winning it.
Yeah, Mike
I wish we were able to go at it.
But a Butcher on Butcher final.
Sure, that would have been great. Well, if I win, it would have been a Farmers, so it would have been...
No, that's true. You would have been playing. He was going to play my Farmers.
And I don't want to be presumptive to say that I would have met him in the final. I just would have liked to have played him. So,
I would say the group up in Greenville are a really good group of players, and we're really trying to get it where we get more big tournaments like that. That's why Chris and I were so pissed off that we couldn't go to it because those are the kind of events we want to support and see.
Yeah. Please, Greenville guys, put on more of those.
Yeah, and we'll definitely put on more events. We always run them, so we like having, our tournaments have usually about 8 to 10 players in them.
Yeah.
which I think is pretty good size.
But if we can get a big one, then we'll try and pull the same sponsorships just like they do.
I would say we can definitely...
Oh, the other thing, and you haven't mentioned this yet, apparently Jamie, who's like the head quartermaster for Steamforge, they were reporting back about that tournament and the results of that tournament to him.
Yeah.
So it may be a tournament that influences some Steamforge decisions as well.
Maybe. Definitely maybe. And, I mean, there were some really good players there. I mean, so this isn't like some...
I know Jess has beat us both.
Yeah, Jess Hodges knows how to play those Morticians. He's a really good player. I know the first time I played him, I was really shocked with how well the Morticians kind of handled me. I was playing Brewers, and I thought I was going to smash him in the face, and it definitely didn't work out that way. And yeah, so Jess Hodges was there. Brian White was there. Brian White smashed me down in Atlanta. I know you haven't had the pleasure of playing him yet, but he's a really good player. And I mean, there were plenty more there, so it was definitely a good quality tournament.
Yeah.
So if you guys have a tournament, especially down kind of in the southeast or even more towards, central, we're definitely always looking for big tournaments like that. I know a couple tournaments we're looking at going to this year are like the Bourbon Trail Open and the Spring Fling. So if you have other tournaments like that you think we might be interested in, definitely hit us up because we're always looking to travel, and we have a bunch of guys that like going to those kind of things.
Have tournament, we'll travel.
Yeah. Yeah, usually. I mean, we have no problem, getting a hotel somewhere and driving a bit.
Yeah, but no more Motel 6s.
Yeah.
They don't even give you shampoo, those bastards.
Yeah, apparently you have to buy it out of the
vending
machine.
We're obviously not going to be getting any sponsorships for Motel 6.
That's okay. So what I wanted to transition to is just kind of your thoughts, because it was the Honest Land Hoedown, just generally about farmers, because I don't want to quite go into our next topic yet, which will take us, a little bit. But just real quick, what are your thoughts about these farmers after because you mainly played me with them.
Yeah, I actually don't want to spend a ton of time talking about farmers today, just because I think that we can devote a whole podcast to our breakdown of farmers.
Yeah.
And me asking you some questions about how you've been playing them. I've been picking them up, and basically, I just feel like they're the strongest guild in Guild Ball. They have a lot going for them. They have a lot of resources, and I think because they're a little bit difficult to learn, it's going to take a little bit of time, but we're already starting to see when we look at that data on the large scale, that metadata, that the farmers are winning a disproportionately high percentage of their games. And that means something when you start creeping up to 60+% of your games won in tournament for a game that has specifically been designed to keep people in that 40 to 50% range, high 50s to low 40s. That farmer team, and even that box, even if you don't put Tater in it, it's got a lot going for it.
Yeah, see, and I was actually, when people started analyzing all of the cards, because all of them are out with the exception of Pharaoh, a lot of people were excited about a lot of stuff in the second box, and they were saying Thresher's the better captain, there's some better tools in there. That first box I've learned to like a lot, and I don't know if I'm going to switch to Thresher a lot. I'm going to play him just to see what I think about him. But Grange is a sick captain. He sets up his team super well, and if you're patient with him, and if you keep your team like in a nice formation, benefiting from those harvest markers, it's a tough team to beat.
Yeah, and so I think that we should put this into the queue and have a future podcast devoted just toward farmers, because there's a lot that we've got to say.
Yeah, so when you guys listen to this, if you want to hear more about farmers, this could be also something where it's like, hey, how do you beat farmers? What are some weaknesses? Especially those of you that have been having some problems with them.
Not much.
Yeah, just let us know. That way we can, decide what we're going to talk about from your input. Because we want this to kind of be an interactive show where we talk about things that you want to know about, because Chris and I could talk about whatever all day. That doesn't, nobody cares about that. But if it's stuff you're interested in, then it makes it more, I think, enjoyable for us and you, because we're helping people out. It's not just us blowing hot air around.
Yeah.
Which we had somebody that basically said, hey, something I'd like to hear about is matchups. And then off of that, somebody else was like, I play butchers, and I've been having a real hard time against brewers and fishermen.
I'm convinced this is Joe.
So if you don't, a lot of you don't know, but we have a good guy in our group. His name's Joe, and Chris is convinced that he created a fake YouTube page and responded to the video and asked for help.
I think that it was just shame. He didn't want to admit that he needed the help, and he wants these questions answered.
Yeah, so looking at it, we decided that we'll help out the person. We'll help hopefully prevent them from rage quitting, especially the game. We don't want to.
Well, if it's going to be funny, rage quit away.
Yeah,
if it's entertaining.
I think that depends on your point of view. And this is actually perfect, though, because Chris plays butchers pretty religiously. I play brewers. That's my main guild, even though I play farmers a lot now, too.
So you're saying you're switching religions?
Hey, well, sometimes you gotta,
Heretic.
Gotta think about switching over. Tempted by the other side. And then Chris and I both have played fishermen as well, so we got a good amount of knowledge on this. So first off, Chris, let's just start with this. What are some problems that butchers traditionally have?
Yeah, the biggest one is reach. Reach is the biggest problem that the butchers have. Specifically, neither of their captains have any. And so if you're able to put together a list that takes advantage of their limited reach, you're going to have a much easier time. And so fishermen, that's why that's a classic matchup, right? A lot of times the fishermen are trying to dance around those butchers and never get within their reach.
So starting with the fishermen, because that's just where we're going here, they have I'd say they have a lot of 2-inch reach, almost more than any other guild.
Yeah.
Like they can put a full list together, even the mascot that has 2-inch reach.
Yeah.
And that's definitely a problem, because that means they can dive in on, brisket without her unpredictable moving. They can tackle a ball without any consequences.
If you're going to be a butcher's player, you need to have that bloodlust in you where you will charge in. You need to have that Space Wolves mentality, whatever it is, whatever reference you want from other games.
Do you want to share the example? Chris and I were teaching an escalation game he's not a newer player, but he's new to butchers. And Chris was trying to give him some hints. I was playing engineers. So just to give you a lineup, I had Colossus, who kicked the ball off to the butchers. Yep. And I think it was Pinvice, and then maybe it was Velocity.
No, I think you had Ratchet.
Actually, I did have Ratchet. You're right. So, and then the other player was playing Ox. Who else did he have in there?
I think Shank.
And Meat Hook.
Okay.
Okay, I don't think he had Shank. I think it was actually
Boiler. I think it was Boiler.
Actually, it might have been Boiler. But anyways, so I kicked the ball off, and go ahead and tell kind of Chris what you recommended to.
Yeah. So when I look at a board and I look at what I'm facing off against, it's about priority management. So there are certain players that will be a nightmare for those butchers. Specifically players that have early knockdowns, that have 2-inch reach, that have lots of movement to where you can't necessarily get to them very easily. When Colossus kicked off and came up that board, one of the first things I said was, you need to kill Colossus.
Or at least engage him.
Or at least engage him. But either way, you need to get in on that model, because it's not going to be Pinvice that's laying the hammer to you, or Ratchet in this case. Colossus was going to be the problem. And in this case, my advice was not heeded. And that's fine. Everyone play their own game. But, of course, Colossus made him pay. And Colossus was able to jump in there, get the ball, score early.
So basically what happened was he basically kicked the ball to Meat Hook, and he just moved up a little bit because he was worried about me getting into him. Like he was almost like, intimidated of that engagement, which if you're a Butcher player, I don't think you can be. And then, so since he left it there and Chris gave him the advice, I'm like, okay, well, this is kind of like a learning lesson for you that you didn't take the advice and you left this guy alone. So I charged into meat hook, stole the ball, kicked the goal in, and there I was.
Yeah. It's interesting. I would also offer this advice, and of course somebody's going to listen to this and pick individual situations where this isn't the case, but generally speaking, you want to get Ox in there pretty quickly so that all the others can benefit from his aura. And Filet is a piece that I feel you want to deliver a little bit later. And what I mean by that is get other models that are putting bleed out, whether it's Boiler, whether it's Meat Hook, so that she can bounce off of that bleed and do extra damage. I feel like each model, each of those two captains has to activate at kind of opposite times during the turn.
I think captains like Ox, they definitely benefit from going early in the turn, getting set up. And I like the way you use Ox as like almost as like a tip of the spear, whereas he's not overextending, but he's leading, the formation up the pitch.
And that's the key. You can't overextend him. But what a lot of people do, and what I see a lot of new players do, is they want to throw Boar in there really early. And I can see why. I can see why that's so attractive. But the problem with doing that is it takes a little bit more time to deliver Boar because Boar is slower. Mm-hmm. And once Boar gets engaged, if he's not finishing off a model and he's staying engaged, you could really jam up your charges in the future.
Yeah, when a new player plays Boar, it's really easy for me to manage Boar because they always mismanage him, like you said, putting him out front. Like they always want to run him as far as they can because he's so slow.
Yeah.
But it's one of those things where you actually got to be patient with Boar because if you throw him up there, not only is he not going to do the work you want him to do, but he's probably going to die.
Yeah. So it's interesting that how you have to activate him because neither one of those guys, Boar or Captain Ox, is particularly hardy. They're killable models.
Oh yeah, definitely.
But what's going to happen is if you put Ox up there first and then bring Boar in, while someone may have focused their attention on Ox, I see a lot of people transfer their attention over to Boar just because Boar is so big and beefy. This is actually one example where I feel like they designed these models and they really took the fluff into account. Specifically, Season 1, when Boar and Ox are this 1-2 punch. Not so much after that where Boar bitches out. So, and then they're not as cool after that. But I like using them together. I feel like Ox needs to be the tip of that spear, and you have to be willing to put them in there. Not overextend them, but at least engage and at least get there.
And I think you almost have to decide when you're playing a melee team, especially because I do the same thing when I'm playing Brewers. You have to realize that a lot of times you're not starting the engagement.
Yes.
That a lot of times you got to put yourself out there, and you might be in their reach, like meaning you may be in their threat range, but you want to make it where if they decide to charge, that it's going to put them in a worse situation.
Yeah.
You don't ever want to overextend to get to a model, and then you're in the worst situation.
Yeah. Now, if you're playing Butchers, I can see you putting a lot onto Filet so that she can jump across the board and get somewhere. But again, I feel like that's a big mistake. And definitely don't do that if the matchup, to whoever asked this question, if you're dealing with the Brewers, do not jump her in there and think that she's going to do work on her own. She will not. She will not put out enough damage to drop someone like Tapper or Hooper, and she's going to get knocked down, and then she's a 4 defense, and she's going to get wiped off that board really quick. You need to play her like a scorer in that matchup. Now, with the Fisherman problem, it depends. It depends on Corsair. If you're playing against Corsair and
Well,
Kraken,
let's talk about Corsair because I think
Okay.
he's the hotter drop right now. A lot of people have kind of
I agree.
put Shark in the corner.
Yeah.
So let's talk about Corsair.
and I think that people putting Shark in the corner is a mistake.
It is.
Because they see that he got nerfed, so they think, oh, well, now he's not as good, which he isn't, but he's still really good.
Yeah.
Still drop him. As far as Corsair goes, Corsair, to me, is... If you know you're playing somebody that's likely to drop Corsair, I'm going to drop Ox into that every time. Every time. 100%. Because Corsair has early knockdowns, and especially if you take Kraken as well, there's early knockdowns, and that is the death of Filet. And so you'll have to play her so far out. But you can get models into Corsair. You can line it up to where maybe someone like Boiler is in front of Ox so that Corsair has to drag Boiler before getting to Ox. And then just go in there and swing away.
So which models have you found to be most successful against Fish as far as a Butcher player? You said Ox is the captain in your opinion?
In my opinion, I'm going to drop Ox almost every time into a Fish player. And the reason why is I believe that when you look at your matchups, you want to pinpoint what you do better and then have the discipline to play your game.
Yeah.
So if I look at the Fish, no matter what lineup, I can put together the best scoring lineup possible for my Butchers, and it will never be as good as any scoring lineup for the Fish.
True.
So my mindset is I'm going to drop the strongest melee team that I can. And then when you listen to this podcast and I go to a tournament, I'm going to change that just to be tricky to you.
Yeah.
So everyone that's
Just throwing
listening,
that out
that might change. But I think that this is good advice, especially for a new player. Pinpoint what you do better and then key on that. So if you're looking at a team that's going to be really high melee, then maybe you want to drop something that's going to be higher scoring. In the case of the Butchers, they're going to be the high melee version of that. If you're against a high scoring team, drop something that's heavy melee and then just have the discipline to wait until they come to the right moments and then take out those models.
Okay. And then, so I'll speak kind of to the Brewers just because that's also a tough matchup, I think, for the Butchers, just because they both do the same thing, but the Brewers are way more hardy. Like, I think they're harder to remove off the pitch just because of how they have more boxes, they have a couple tough hide models, and I think it's tough because they're kind of more tanky. So if the Brewer player is disciplined, I think it's very tough for the Butcher player to win that matchup. But you want to kind of speak to, because you've beaten me before, so
yeah,
how have you been successful?
So again, it's prioritizing your threats. And so
do you think Filet's better into the Brewers?
I like that because you can play a score game instead. So if you drop someone like Tapper in there, it takes a lot of discipline because I'm looking at Filet and I'm looking at all these other Butchers models and I obviously want to do some damage with them. But yeah, I think that a Tapper lineup is going to probably have some melee advantages specifically because of the knockdowns and the 2-inch reach. And so taking a model like Filet, where I have some scoring options and a lot of movement, is probably a pretty smart idea.
And I think the smart thing that I've seen Chris do when he's played against my Brewers, because I think pretty exclusively, I don't think I've ever dropped Esters into Butchers. I just think Tapper's the better matchup. And I like Esters. I mean, so I'm not going to tell you that never play her because I actually play her quite a bit, probably more than a lot of Brewers players.
Yeah, I would agree with
Maybe
that.
even sometimes when I shouldn't. But
sometimes definitely when you shouldn't.
Yeah, the times that I felt that Chris has done really good is he's used Filet to pick off somebody from the pack. So the Brewers kind of do this mosh pit thing where they stay in their nice little circle. And I think that the key is try to do the scoring game and get your kills as well. But you want to get the loose Brewer. You don't want to go after Tapper unless he overextends. Or you don't want to go after Spigot unless he's like behind and you can pull him out or pick him off without getting into that mosh pit.
Now, I hope that if Gutter becomes a veteran version for the Butchers, that can solve some of
Have
the
like
problems.
a nice drag to pull somebody out.
Pull those guys, because they have low defense, which is really nice. And so, if you can pull those models out of their lineup, that can really address a lot of the Brewer problems into Butchers. But that's hard to do now. The Butchers, as they currently sit, they don't have the easiest knockdowns to get. They definitely don't generate momentum.
They don't have a lot of reposition either.
And they don't have a lot of reposition. That is why I say that with a matchup where you're going against the Brewers with your Butchers, I would recommend taking Filet.
Taking Brisket.
And you can choose Brisket 1 or 2. Mm-hmm. There's good reasons for both. But I would take Filet. I would take Brisket. I would take Shank because of all the movement that Shank can give you. And then I'd probably take a model like Meat Hook. Meat Hook isn't a slow model. She's got a 3 kick. And she puts out some bleed, which Filet, in theory, could benefit from.
So to the listeners out there, once again, I'm just going to harp on this because I think this is a nice tip you always told me, is if a guild you're going against is one of the best melee guilds in the game, like Brewers, Brewers are going to bash. That's what they're going to do.
Yep.
They have a scoring list, but it's not that great. You don't want to bash with the Brewers. Yeah, you can kill them, but you don't want to sit there in the middle and, throw punches with them because I'd say most times Brewers are going to come out of that okay.
Yeah, I would agree. So it might be worth us hitting some of these. So if you're looking at top melee lineups, what are the ones that you think of right off the bat that are heavy-hitting melee?
I mean, so the ones that hit me right off the bat are Brewers, led by Tapper. Butchers, either captain can do it. Union, led by Rage.
Okay.
And, I mean, I'd throw the Farmers in there now, too.
With Grange?
Yep, with Grange.
Okay.
And those are probably the top.
And so if someone's looking at those matchups, if they're looking at playing Tapper, Ox, Rage, or Grange, know that you might want to key on scoring. Now, who are the top scoring models for you?
Models are guilds.
Well, guilds, but captains. Let's put it that way.
I mean, if I was looking at scoring captains and guilds, I would still go with, obviously, Fishermen. And either of their captains are really good at scoring.
But I think Sharks are better.
Well, yes, Sharks obviously better, but Corsair can still do the job. Engineers, either captain, Ballista or Pinvice are really good at scoring. The whole guild's good at scoring. And then I'd say still a Midas Alchemist is really good at scoring.
Okay. So if you're looking at going into Fish, Alchemists, Engineers, those are the times where you want to key on your melee instead. I think that it's a pretty big mistake unless you're one of those players that is very, very skilled and has really good control for you to try to play something that's kind of in the middle of the road. I think it's easier for you to take a strong skew toward one side and have the discipline to play
that style
than it is if you're somebody. Well, and Brian White did this in Atlanta, right? He put together this list that kind of was his jack of all trades list, and he just played it real well and real delicately to where he was able to take advantage of any mistakes that were made. But for the most part, I think even if you're playing someone like the Masons, skew toward the opposite of what your opponent's going to do, and then just have the discipline to make sure to stay in your style.
Yeah, and I think that's also important just to realize that you can't, like, if you're a melee team, like, let's say that you play, I don't know who I'm going to pick here, but let's just say you play Mortician's Scalpel.
Okay.
Generally speaking, I don't think you want to go in there and bash with people. You want to try to get maybe 2 goals and 2 takeouts. You don't want to sit there and try to do 4 takeouts or 6 takeouts because you're probably not going to get there as fast as a Brewers or, Rage would get.
Yeah, the only times where I'm looking at something like that is, like I said, if someone's playing Morticians and they're up against a heavy scoring team, then yeah, maybe you can melee with them and win that scrum.
Throw shark in the box.
It's throwing anyone, especially a captain in the box, is a nightmare. So I think I'm going to start giving out like awards when I run a tournament and someone does certain things like that, whether it's the bear doing a bear hug or it's Casket throwing someone in the box. Those things that are just crazy, mess your whole game up type maneuvers.
Now, I will say this, though. I think you got to be also prepared for people that play something different, like the Dark Horse list. Because I'm going to tell you, when I drop Esters sometimes, there's some people that don't know what to do against Esters.
Yeah, I'm sure there are. That's, to be honest, one of the things that I really like about playing Ox as much as I do. I'm a big Ox fan, and it seems like everyone else wants to play Filet, and I'm just like, please, keep playing Filet. Keep doing that, because it just means that you're not conditioning all these players to Ox as much, although Ox has been around the block, so everyone should know what he does. But I love that idea of those Dark Horse lists. I think that's what Jess caught you with, right?
Oh, yeah. We've been playing a lot of games, and we went to this tournament in Greenville, and this was
a few months ago.
It was like in March. I think it was like in March or something. Whatever. But anyways, the only Morticians I played was Obulus, so I was like, oh, he's going to drop Obulus because that's what everybody drops. And then this a-hole drops Scalpel. I'm like, I don't even know what Scalpel does. I got to look at the card real quick, and I just got demoralized in that game just because there were so many gotchas, and there were a couple bad rolls that didn't help either. But yeah, the Dark Horse effect is definitely real.
I kind of think that Jess, there's something about those Morticians and how he plays them where he's got like a curse, because I've suffered from some really bad rolling situations against him too.
I'm not going to pretend like it was just the dice rolls. He played it really
He knows what
smart.
he's doing, yeah.
And
And part of that smart play is him cursing your die.
I mean, Scalpel is the voodoo woman.
That's what I'm saying.
So she might have, put some jaga.
I'm really tempted to do that. I'd paint a whole set of Morticians that are all voodoo themed.
That'd be cool.
That'd be really cool.
I mean, I like her Morticians anyways. They're painted really nicely.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, I like that black and green effect you got going on there.
Yeah, they're neat.
All right, so just if you guys have any more questions like that, I know we can't, because we're going to try to keep this around 45 minutes. So, I mean, definitely we'll answer questions on Twitter. If you guys hit me up at rage_quit_wire at Twitter, I'll definitely answer your questions. If I kind of want to get somebody else's opinion, I'll hit some other people up too, because we definitely want to grow the community. I'm not trying to hide any information about brewers. It's like, if you want to know how to beat my brewers, I'll tell you, and then it's up to you to execute it.
Yeah, if we have to hide information, we'll just block those people from being able to read our posts. So
block Brian White.
There you go. He's already too good. He doesn't need to know our strategies.
Oh, to block other metas.
Yeah, there you go.
So, I don't know. What do you think? Anything else you want to add real quick? Any upcoming events, games? There's one game you're really excited about.
I am.
You want to talk about that for a second?
Kingdom Death Monster should be shipping soon. I got my notification that my payment for shipping has been charged.
So what is that game, just real quick?
Kingdom Death Monster is the brainchild of Adam Poots. It's this game that started on Kickstarter, and it raised $2 to $3 million the first time around. And then they put it back on. It immediately sold out, and you could only find it on eBay for like $1,000. And then they put it back on Kickstarter this past holiday season, and again, it just went bananas. This thing, I think, raised $14 million or thereabouts. And it's this epic settlement building dungeon crawler. It's got elements of mini war games. It's got elements of role-playing games. And the thing that is so unique about it and so cool is the monsters that you play. The designs of them are just so intricate, and some of them are really nasty and gnarly looking.
So do you play this? Is this like the players are working together for something, or are you competing?
This is one where you're working together. So your goal as a group is to beat this game. It is incredibly difficult from what I understand. I don't have the game yet, but I've been watching YouTube videos. I've been talking to friends that have played it. It's one of these games where, you might play role-playing games and build a character and love that character.
Mm.
Don't get too attached to this game because those characters will die.
Oh, wow.
And so it's supposed to be really challenging. I'm actually trying to put a group together with some of the better gamers that we have in this area so that we can take this.
I'm going to get Chris Leopard to teach us how to play the game.
That'll be great. And that way we can really dig into it. But I'm really excited. I'm just waiting with bated breath for me to get that notification of my tracking number because I'm going to be checking that on the daily until it gets here.
A game that I'm really excited about, there's a new set coming out for Dice Masters, and you haven't played Dice Masters before, but I have. And it's a new X-Men set, and it's actually X-Men First Class. Okay. So it's going to be really cool because it's going to be some of those traditional characters that you're used to. They got a super sweet Colossus card in there that I'm excited because I'm a big Colossus guy. Obviously, because my name's Pete. But
is that the reason?
Oh, yeah. It's a lot of it.
Okay.
Plus, he's just cool, man. He's just this Russian bear, And so that's got me really excited. That actually just came out. I think at the final round, we're going to do a draft of that set on Saturday. So that'll be fun for anybody that likes Dice Masters. Just check with your local shop. And it's a really clean, easy game to play. They have a lot of sets that come out, so it's always interesting. Plus, in November, the WizKids Open is coming back out, the WKO. And for the final round, I'll get a for sure date. But I think for the final round, they're going to do their WizKids Open. I want to say that second weekend of November sounds right to me. And that would be kind of right around, I want to say the 18th. But I'm not 100% sure off the top of my head. So if you like WizKids tournaments for Dice Masters or even HeroClix, that's going to be coming in November. So that's kind of my little shout out to another game besides Guild Ball.
Sure.
All right, but I think with that being said, just leave us some comments, follow us on Twitter. We already
hit that like button, hit it hard.
Yeah, we already got about 19 followers on Twitter, and we've only been going out this a little over a week. We are going to put this on iTunes and Google Play, but we read some recommendations that said you might want to hold off putting it on there until you have more than one episode. Okay. So now that we have 2 episodes recorded,
bam, we're ready to roll.
We're going to put it on there. So once I got that, I'll put it out on all the Guild Ball Facebook groups, and I'll put it out on Twitter. But I am going to put this first on YouTube just because that's the easiest and quickest for me to do, and it's just too easy.
Yeah.
All right. Well, with that being said,
later.
I think we're done with episode 2, and go get some games in.